in the violent, chaotic world of Depression-era America. The FBI faced dozens of outlaws, men like John Dillinger, Pretty Boy Floyd, and Machine Gun Kelly. But among all of them, one gangster stood out as uniquely terrifying. Not because he was the most famous or the most strategic, but because he was the most violently unpredictable. His name was Lester Joseph Gillis, better known as Babyface Nelson. And unlike the others, Nelson didn't just run from the FBI, he ran toward them. Nelson was born on December 6, 1908, in Chicago. The youngest child of Belgian immigrants trying to survive in a city defined by poverty, corruption, and the early rumblings of organized crime. His childhood was marked by instability and exposure to street violence. At the age of 12, he found a pistol and accidentally shot a playmate, an event that sent him to a juvenile reformatory and introduced him to the criminal justice system, long before he understood its consequences. Intimidated rivals with sudden bursts of violence and showed no hesitation in pulling the trigger. By 1930, he led the Tape Bandits, a crew that invaded wealthy homes, tied up victims with adhesive tape, and stole jewelry worth tens of thousands of dollars. His first bank robbery that same year revealed his defining trait. He fired his weapon even when no one resisted. To the FBI, this made him uniquely dangerous, a criminal who didn't just use violence as a tool, but as an instinct. When he returned home, he gravitated toward older boys, involved in car theft, bootlegging, and petty robberies. By 14, Nelson was already known to police as a skilled car thief who could strip a vehicle in minutes and disappear. Before officers arrived, these early experiences hardened him and taught him that violence was not only a tool, but a language he understood instinctively. Nelson's nickname came from his appearance, a round, youthful face that made him look more like a schoolboy than a criminal. But behind that innocent facade was a temper so explosive that even hardened gangsters kept their distance. During Prohibition, Nelson joined the Toohey Gang, a Chicago outfit involved in bootlegging and extortion. His reputation grew quickly. He escalated minor disputes into shootouts. Nelson's crimes eventually caught up with him. In 1931, he was arrested and sentenced to 1 year to life, a range that reflected both the severity of his crimes and the unpredictability of his behavior. But Nelson refused to remain behind bars. In February 1932, during a routine prison transfer, he escaped, vanishing into the Midwest before authorities could react. His flight eventually took him to California, where he met John Paul Chase, a liquor smuggler deeply involved in West Coast bootlegging operations. Chase became Nelson's closest partner, not only in crime, but in temperament. Together, they guarded illegal shipments, robbed banks, and built connections with criminal networks, stretching from Chicago to San Francisco. Nelson's reputation grew with each violent encounter, and law enforcement began to recognize him as a rising threat. By 1934, Babyface Nelson's growing reputation put him in the orbit of America's most notorious criminal, John Dillinger. Nelson became part of Dillinger's outfit at a time when the group was pulling off some of the boldest bank heists across the Midwest. He also had a hand in Dillinger's breakout from Crown Point Jail, a jailbreak that humiliated authorities across the country and only added to the gang's outlaw mythology. But Nelson's violent tendencies made him difficult to manage. Dillinger himself refused to rob banks with Nelson, calling him too reckless and too willing to shoot. Nelson's actions often endangered the gang, and his temper created tension within the group. Still, his skill with firearms and his fearlessness in confrontations made him an asset during the gang's most dangerous operations. In April 1934, the Dillinger gang sought refuge at the Little Bohemian Lodge in Wisconsin. The FBI attempted a surprise raid, but the operation quickly collapsed into chaos. Agents mistakenly shot civilians, and the gang escaped into the surrounding woods. Nelson fled separately, engaging in multiple shootouts as he tried to evade capture. His rage intensified during this period, and his encounters with law enforcement became increasingly violent. The FBI elevated him to public enemy number one after Dillinger's death, recognizing that Nelson was now the most dangerous outlaw in the country. His movements became erratic, and he relied heavily on Chase and his wife, Helen, to stay ahead of federal agents. On November 27, 1934, Nelson's violent career reached its climax in Barrington, Illinois. After spotting FBI agents, Nelson initiated a confrontation that escalated into one of the bloodiest shootouts of the era. Despite being severely wounded early in the exchange, he continued firing, killing 2 agents and injuring others. Witnesses described him as relentless, refusing to retreat even as his injuries became fatal. After the gunfire ceased, Nelson collapsed into the car driven by his wife. He died later that evening at the age of 25, leaving behind a legacy defined not by cunning or strategy, but by raw, unrestrained violence that forced the FBI to evolve its tactics and expand its authority. If you enjoyed this video, please like, comment, and consider subscribing to my channel.